Coming up on Face the State, the Nevada Department of Agriculture oversees a huge range of programs, from livestock to lunches in schools. We'll speak with the director about whether this drought is affecting the way they do business. Then, Nevada's program to certify organic products is on the chopping block. What that means for local farmers and consumers when Face the State starts right after the break. Welcome to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for joining us. Well, when you think of Nevada's main industries, you may think tourism, gaming, and mining, but agriculture is actually one of our biggest industries, and the state's governing body oversees a huge number of programs, all the way from farm to table. Jim Barbie, the director of the Nevada Department of Agriculture, is here with us now. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, really, I'm amazed at how many programs the Nevada Department of Ag covers. It's a big department.
It's shocking. It actually is, absolutely. When I got the position 4 years ago, I was amazed by the size of the things that we managed, and that's expanded over the last 4 years through the last couple of sessions. We've really taken on a lot more responsibility at the agency, and we've really changed how the agency's put together and what our focus is on. We focused a lot more on urban agriculture and really trying to connect urban agriculture and the food craze that we have that's going on in the nation and in Nevada as well to our traditional production agriculture that we have a long history of here in the state.
Now, would you say there's one area that is the biggest focus for you guys, or is it pretty wide-ranging?
Well, in terms of the industry, there's really two main areas, and when we did our study in 2013, and we now do a yearly study on the agriculture industry as a whole, it really showed that production agriculture in the north is a big chunk of the agriculture commodity production that we have in the state, and then in the south and in the north to a certain extent the food manufacturing and that portion of the agriculture industry. Of course, on the Department of Agriculture, we're in charge of checking your fuel pumps to the child nutrition programs that we have that were brought in the 2013 legislative session, to food safety laboratory that we've developed over the last year that's tied to dairy, and we'll be doing more and more with FDA under a cooperative agreement. Yeah,
now we're going to be getting to a lot of that a little bit in a second. I want to start with a big part of what you guys do is ensuring healthy livestock, healthy food products coming into the kitchens of Nevadans. We've got this big outbreak of bird flu happening in other parts of the country. Is there any concern about something like that coming here?
You know, in Nevada, we don't have a sizable poultry industry to mention. We do have some small poultry producers in the urban areas, and they're producing eggs, and we're mindful of the flu issue, and we've been checking that. Our state veterinarian has been out, but we've not had any issues so far in Nevada, although we have had outbreaks in surrounding states, pretty much all the surrounding states, I think, except for Arizona and Utah. But what's probably going to have the biggest impact is in the reduction of those flocks is the egg production. You're going to see a lot less egg production, which is going to mean higher prices, higher demand, and also on your poultry, your meat product.
Any other diseases in any of the other products that are concerns?
We're constantly tracking diseases. We're connected with USDA APHIS, who oversees the national disease monitoring system. We have a state veterinarian, and so we have health checks that are required from your pets coming into the state to someone that's shipping livestock, cattle into the state. And all of that has to go through our vet laboratories and our animal disease laboratories that we have at the Department of Agriculture and verify those records.
Now, you also deal with wild animals. Which ones are you guys dealing with most?
Correct. We have all animal disease responsibilities for the state, so that includes wildlife. We do work in cooperation with the Department of Wildlife, and they have a veterinarian that's actually housed in our health facilities. And so as ranchers, producers have disease issues that they're not sure of, or we see that in the wildlife, they're able to bring that into our laboratory. We do necropsy and evaluation and try to decipher what issues may exist. But we're pretty lucky in Nevada. We have a pretty safe animal structure.
Do we have nuisance animals, though? I mean, I know a lot of ranchers would classify the wild horses and burros as nuisance animals.
Well, actually, those are feral and stray for the horses that are not under the Wild Horse Burro Act. And the ones that are under the Wild Horse and Burro Act fall under the authority of BLM and under their management. And all in all, that management happens there. We're responsible for the feral or stray horses that we have in the state, and trying to keep a balance on those populations.
What role do you play there? How do you keep that balance?
Well, and as of late, in the last several years, with the economic downturn, we're pretty limited to basically public safety funds is the only general fund our agency receives. And so we don't necessarily manage feral or stray horses, but we do have a lot of feral or stray horses on the Virginia range. We just recently entered a cooperative agreement with the Return to Freedom organization, who's working with the local horse advocate groups and trying to keep those horses off of our highways and keep them out of direct contact with the citizenry, because even though they look very tame, they can cause damage and hurt folks, and we want to keep that from happening.
Well, they're wild animals, just like anything else. Now, I know that in the past there's been a program that kind of incentivizes getting rid of other predator animals that could hurt flocks. Like mountain lions, that sort of thing. Does that still exist? Yeah,
that's our wildlife service program. That's actually a USDA APHIS program. It's wildlife services, and then we have state trappers, which work under a cooperative agreement with the Federal Wildlife Service program. And so they're largely, that group that we oversee is directed towards protecting livestock, where Department of Wildlife does contract with Wildlife Services itself to do some of the protection of the wildlife themselves from some of the predatory animals.
Yeah, it's a tough balance to meet, I think, especially when we have dwindling resources due to the drought. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot more wild animals coming into more populated areas looking for food. And of course, it takes away from grazing abilities for our farmers. What do you guys do about that?
It's interesting. Things looked a lot worse a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, than they do today. With the rains that we've had most recently, the last 4 weeks, that's had a tremendous positive impact on the feed sources out on the range, and even to an impact, I have a small place that I irrigate, and we didn't believe we were going to get any ground irrigation from our rights this year because the water was so low. But with those rains, that brought up the levels that we were actually able to get a couple of irrigations. The difficulty is that some of those springs have dried up in the higher elevations, and so for a lot of our livestock, our ranchers are having to haul that water out to ensure that they've got the water sources that they need to survive.
Yeah, I mean, it makes farming even more difficult than it already is. What do you tell farmers who are already struggling about this?
It's something, for our producers, it's more than just a livelihood. It's a way of life, and it's so ingrained in them, and it's not something that they can just walk away from easily. So they're dedicated to get through it. And Nevada is a desert. We've lived in a desert. This isn't our first drought, and it's one of our most difficult ones. But they keep doing what they're doing, and they haul the water out, and they keep it out there, and the forage is, like I said, we've had a pretty good spring, a pretty good wet spring, and so we see a lot of forage out there, so we're hoping we can capitalize on that.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to see such a big industry hurting like that, but in the long term, I mean, if we don't see this drought turn around, is farming in this desert climate sustainable?
Yes, and it has been sustainable for 150 years. And so, like I say, these folks are dedicated to their livelihood and their industry, their way of life, and that's going to continue. We're going to continue to look for different ways that we can advance, technology to make things easier and lower their costs. We're seeing a lot of talk in Nevada about drones. Mm-hmm. Well, drones have a real application in agriculture in Nevada, especially when you look at the ranges and the sage grouse issue and trying not to impact the sage grouse in terms of our movement across those ranges. Drones are a perfect platform where we can cover a lot more ground with less folks. And so that's one example where technology is beneficial. Also being able to look at the moisture content using different cameras they have on those.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I've done a Face the State on that. It was absolutely fascinating. Switching gears a little bit, we've kind of covered the farm part, and now we'll take it to the table part.
Sure.
You guys also oversee what happens once food gets to people's plates, and one of the ways you do that is with the school nutrition program. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Correct. That's the largest program that we have. It was a combined program that came from Department of Education. We had commodity foods that came from Department of Administration. And then finally we brought in the Dairy Commission that was a standalone but under Business and Industry to form the Food and Nutrition Division. So that's roughly federal money, around $300 million a biennium that comes into the agency. A lot of that money is flow through, it's reimbursement, and then our staff work directly with the school districts in terms of preparing the nutrition requirements in the food that they're serving to the students, and that's all part of that granting process. Then on the commodity food side, we receive USDA commodity foods that we work with the food banks both in the north and the south, and the local charities, Catholic charities and pantries, in terms of dispersing that food out for those folks that are in need.
And the picture of school meals has really changed in the last couple of years. I mean, nationally they've changed the requirements, and here locally, more emphasis on fruits and vegetables. How's that been going so far?
Good, yeah. We've been going through the implementation on that the last couple of years actually, and we've been able to receive some funds to do some more promotion and making sure that everybody's aware of what we're doing there. And I think, even some of the urban, and this kind of crosses over into the agriculture side, some of the urban food interests that have happened out there have really focused on improving the quality of food that goes into the cafeteria and the lunchroom that's in front of our students, including my kids. And so, that's a big focus right now, is those school districts really trying to improve the food quality that they're able to present.
Has there been any pushback from people who say they don't want this change, or the kids won't eat it, they're coming home hungry?
We've seen some of those national stories. We haven't seen as much of that in Nevada. We have every now and again, of course, complaints that come in, and we follow up. We go touch back with the school district itself, who's actually there providing the meals, and we work cooperatively and provide technical assistance to those school districts to try to help them improve those food products where they can.
What about waste? I know I have heard from some parents saying, oh, my kid's just throwing it away and throwing away my tax dollars, they're not eating it. What do we do to address that?
There's a couple of different things that we have. There is a program it's an offer program that basically the school district can utilize, and they have to be offered certain foods, and then they can choose not to take them, but they have to take like 3 out of the 5. And so that's one thing that's been implemented that reduces a lot of that waste. Then secondly, the food banks and 3 Square and the Food Bank of Northern Nevada both have made connections with the school districts, and that product that is served, that is packaged and hasn't been opened, it has a shelf life, they're able to then utilize that through their programs, and then that spreads. So there's always going to be some level of waste, but that's something that's really been addressed, and we feel pretty confident that's improving.
What about the idea of flipping around lunch and recess, so recess comes first? Is that something that's happening?
Well, and that comes on more of the instructional side that's outside the Department of Agriculture, per se, would be on the education side, so we really haven't had to deal with that much.
Okay. Now, obviously this is happening in school lunches, the change, more emphasis on, natural grown foods,
right.
whole grains, that sort of thing. The USDA changed its iconic food pyramid. Now we've got the plate, right? That's half fruits and veggies. It's a very different model. How important is it to your department to kind of push that on Nevadans' healthier eating habits?
Well, that's part of our promotional efforts that we've been really focused on the last couple of years. If you go to our website, we've even highlighted some of the food manufacturers like Anderson Dairy that provides the largest amount of milk to Clark County School District, is just one example. There's several.